They said she was just the medic, the one who patched wounds and carried supplies. No one expected her to do much else. But on this morning, in the blistering heat of an unforgiving desert, Elena Cruz was about to prove they were wrong. The convoy was stalled at the edge of a shattered village, the sun beating down like a hammer. Soldiers moved cautiously between crumbled walls, eyes darting for danger. The air was thick with tension. Everyone knew the enemy could be anywhere. Then the first shot cracked through the silence. It was precise, deliberate, and deadly. The soldier nearest Elena dropped instantly, a dark red stain blooming across his chest. She was already moving, sliding to his side, her training kicking in. Calm hands pulled her trauma kit free as she knelt down. "Reeves, stay with me," she said, voice steady despite the chaos. Her fingers found the wound, applying pressure. Blood soaked through the bandage, but she kept working, ignoring the dust and distant shouts. The soldiers behind her ducked, searching for the source of the sniper's bullet. No one could see the shooter. No one except Elena. Her eyes scanned the ruins, picking out a tiny movement near a broken window. A flicker of light, a barrel disappearing behind shattered glass. Her heart quickened, but she didn't speak. Not yet. Another shot rang out, this one closer. It grazed the wall beside the captain's head. The men around her scrambled, panic rising, but Elena stayed still. Focused. The captain barked orders, voice sharp with frustration. "Anyone see the sniper?" "No visual," someone called. Elena finally spoke, voice low but firm. "It's a trained shooter. Not local." Dalton, the captain, turned to her with a raised eyebrow. "How can you be sure?" "Because I've seen this before," she said, steadying herself. "He's using high-caliber rounds, precise timing, and he's hiding in the shadows. This isn't tribal fighters. This is professional." Dalton hesitated. "You're the medic." "I was a sniper before this," she said quietly. A murmur ran through the group, disbelief mixing with newfound respect. The captain nodded slowly, then did something no one expected. He reached behind his back and handed her his Barrett sniper rifle. "Take it. Find him. Drop that sniper." Elena's hands trembled slightly as she accepted the weapon. The weight was familiar, comforting even. She lifted it carefully, scanning through the scope. Her breath slowed, her mind sharpening. Through the glass, she saw the ruined building again. The window where the shooter had disappeared. The slight breeze that whispered secrets through the broken walls. She lined up the shot, adjusting for distance and wind. Time stretched. The others held their breath. Then, a quiet squeeze of the trigger. The shot shattered the stillness. A flash in the window. The body slumped. Elena lowered the rifle slowly, but something didn't sit right. That wasn't the only sniper. Not by a long shot. She looked at Dalton. "There's another one." He nodded grimly. They thought she was just a medic. But today, Elena Cruz was the hunter. And the battle had only just begun. Elena dropped flat behind the wall and laid the Barrett across a sandbag. Her movements were smooth, quiet, like muscle memory had been waiting for permission to wake up. She tuned out the shouting, tuned out the dust, tuned out Reeves' breathing as it rattled somewhere behind her. Through the scope, the ruins came into focus. The window she'd spotted earlier sat empty, shadows curling like smoke across broken concrete. But she knew better. She knew how snipers worked. The first shot is just a warning. The second is a trap. The third ends the story. She adjusted the dial slightly. Wind left to right. Slight shimmer from the heat. Barrel dropped minimal at this range, but elevation counted. She moved the reticle an inch higher. And waited. Nothing moved. Dalton crouched beside her. "You see him?" "No." "You sure he's there?" "Yes." Another beat passed. Then a glint. Brief. Almost imperceptible. A reflection off a lens? Maybe not even that. Maybe it was just instinct. She exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The Barrett roared. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. A puff of dust and glass exploded in the top corner of the window. Then nothing. No scream. No movement. Just stillness. She kept the scope steady. Then, slowly, a dark shape slumped sideways inside the window frame. Not a silhouette. A body. Heavy. Lifeless. Target down, she said, voice flat. Dalton didn't speak right away. When he did, it wasn't a cheer. It was just a nod, like he already knew she'd hit it. But Elena didn't look away from the glass. Something didn't feel right. That shot was too clean, she said softly. What do you mean? He didn't flinch. He didn't react. He never even saw me. Dalton frowned. So, that's good, isn't it? She pulled her eye back from the scope and shook her head. Not if he wasn't the one watching us. A silence fell over them. Not just quiet, real silence. No more shots. No echo. No movement in the ruins. Elena turned to Reeves, who was being lifted onto a stretcher. He gave her a weak thumbs up. She nodded back, but her focus was already shifting. Something felt off. One sniper? Sure. But trained? Suppressed? Deliberate? That wasn't local militia. That was professional. And professionals didn't work alone. She glanced at the ruined buildings again. Calculated angles. If the first shooter had eyes on their approach, then someone else would have been covering the fallback route. The exit strategy. She turned to Dalton. There's a second one. He didn't question her. He just looked out at the horizon. Where? Not sure yet. He's not watching for movement. He's watching for command. Dalton nodded slowly. Me. Or anyone who takes charge. They waited for you to poke your head up. He pulled his helmet down tighter. So what do we do? Elena looked down at the Barrett. The rifle was warm now. Alive again. And so was something inside her. Not rage. Not fear. Focus. She slung the Barrett across her shoulder and started moving toward the far side of the ruins. Dalton called after her. You going alone? Yes, she said, because she knew how to think like a sniper, and the only way to find one was to become one again. The path through the ruins wasn't clear. Every footstep kicked up fine dust that clung to her boots. Elena moved low and slow, weaving through collapsed archways and broken stairwells, scanning corners without turning her head too fast. This wasn't like being a medic. This was chess. Quiet, deliberate, and deadly. The sun was climbing. Heat shimmered on every surface. From a distance, it looked calm, peaceful even. But Elena had learned long ago that quiet didn't mean safe. It meant someone was watching. She paused behind a broken doorway, wiped sweat from her brow, and lifted the Barrett slowly. Through the scope, she swept the far buildings. Rooftops, windows, anything with a clean line of sight to the last known position of the team. Nothing, but something still pressed against the back of her neck. That old instinct, the one she hadn't trusted in years, the one that used to keep her alive. She turned slightly. Not east, not high ground, northwest. That's where she'd be if the roles were reversed. Slight slope, good exit routes, partial shade, enough cover to blend in, but open enough to ensure a long-range kill. She moved again, faster now. Heart steady, grip tight. Every corner became a calculation, every shadow a threat. Then she saw it. Not the shooter. Not yet. But the signature. An empty casing. Still warm. She knelt and picked it up with 2 fingers. Match grade. Foreign. Not the kind you find in a cave stockpile. The sniper wasn't local. This was gear you had to earn, or be sent with. She set the casing down and scanned the area ahead. There, a stack of broken crates. A tattered net used for shade. Beneath it, barely visible, a drag mark in the dirt. Elena crawled to a nearby wall, set the Barrett up on a busted window frame, and peered through the scope. There he was, lying prone, covered in a makeshift ghillie suit. The rifle extended through a hole in the wall, just a sliver of barrel exposed. His scope was fixed in the exact direction of her team's fallback position. He wasn't moving. She watched his chest rise once, twice. He was patient, cold, unaware he was being hunted now. Elena slowed her breath, checked the wind, adjusted her aim. 1 inch to the left, half an inch up. She hesitated, not because of fear, but because of certainty. She hadn't felt this sharp in years. The weight of the rifle, the pull of the trigger. It all came back like forgotten song. She fired. The shot cracked through the air. Dust exploded around the target. His body jerked, then slumped. The rifle clattered against the stone, sliding out of the hole. Elena kept her eye on the scope. Stillness. Then a flicker. Movement from behind the body. Someone else. She adjusted the barrel fast. Scanned. A shadow ducked behind a wall. No weapon. Smaller. Civilian. Spotter. No, too smooth. Too rehearsed. Backup. She slid back from the window and circled around. If he was retreating, she couldn't let him disappear. This wasn't a random attack. This was coordinated. Professional. As she moved, her radio crackled. Cruz. You all right? Dalton's voice. She pressed the mic, second shooter down. Possible third. Trying to intercept. You need backup. No. If I miss this, we won't get another chance. She switched channels. Radio silence from her end now. She didn't want the distraction. Because what came next wasn't just another shot. It was a question. How far was she willing to go to finish what someone else started? Elena tracked the movement like she was still back in training. The shadow that ducked behind the wall didn't move like a scared man. It moved like a professional. No panic. No wasted motion. She adjusted her grip on the Barrett. It wasn't the right weapon for what was coming, but it was what she had, and she wasn't going to waste a second switching now. She kept close to the wall, slipping through the narrow corridor between 2 half-demolished buildings. A soft wind moved the dust across her boots. Somewhere in the distance, the crackle of a distant radio reminded her the team was still waiting. She reached the edge of the alley and paused. Nothing ahead, just a stretch of broken concrete, a rusted truck, and piles of stone. It looked empty. Too empty. She crouched low and ran a scan with the scope. Nothing. No glint. No movement. But her gut screamed that he was there. Watching. She slid along the wall, inch by inch. The edge of the truck was 5 meters away now. She could feel her pulse in her ears. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was loaded. Then a whisper of pressure shifted the air near her head. She ducked. A shot punched through the wall behind her, spraying chips of stone into her hair. Another fired a heartbeat later, just as she rolled behind a stack of bricks. She hit the dirt hard, Barrett across her chest, heart thundering. Different weapon. Smaller caliber. Shorter barrel. Closer range. He'd repositioned while she was circling. Anticipated her. Whoever he was, this wasn't just survival. He was testing her, pushing her, like he knew how she'd move before she did. She waited, breathing through her nose, eyes scanning. Another shadow. Left side. Fast. He moved between cover like a ghost, keeping low, never exposing his full profile. It was clean. Military. Not tribal. Not hired gun. Something more. She raised the Barrett. Too slow. Too heavy. The scope caught light, just as she spotted him slipping behind a fallen pillar. He saw the flash, and smiled. Another shot cracked. She ducked again. This wasn't just a hit. It was personal. She pulled back, retreating behind a doorway, and tapped her comm. Dalton, she whispered. Shooter 3 is active. Close range. Military trained. Possibly former special ops. There was a pause. Then Dalton's voice came through, calm but tense. Need backup? No, not yet. She didn't want anyone else in his line of fire. He was after her anyway. She moved fast now, cutting left, then doubling back behind a collapsed stairwell. She dropped the Barrett gently on the ground and drew her sidearm. Short barrel. Clean sights. He wasn't expecting her to go quiet, but she had a different plan now. She waited, listened, then heard it a breath. Not far. She turned sharply and spotted him half-standing, watching the corner she'd just left. Gun raised. Searching. He didn't see her move behind him. She rose up, aimed fast and clean. Drop it. He froze, then slowly turned his head. His eyes met hers. Calm. Studying. Then he spoke. I was wondering how long it would take you. His voice was American. East Coast. No accent. Not Taliban. Not foreign contract. Military. He knew her name. You don't remember me, he said. But I remember you. Najaf. 2009. Elena didn't blink. I wasn't in Najaf. He smiled. No, but the man you shot was. He dropped the pistol and raised his hands. Not in surrender, but an invitation. This wasn't a standoff. It was the beginning of something much worse. Elena stared at the man across from her, the weight of the past hanging heavy in the air between them. His eyes, cold and steady, didn't waver as he spoke of Najaf, 2009, a place she never wanted to revisit. But now it was impossible to ignore. You don't remember me, he said, but I remember you. Her heart tightened. The ghosts of that war still whispered in her mind. The missions, the betrayals, the friends she'd lost. And now this man, someone from that past, was standing in front of her, pistol lowered but still dangerous. Why are you here? She asked, voice steady but with an edge. What do you want? He smiled, a slow, calculated curve of his lips. To remind you that the war never really ends. You think leaving Najaf meant you were safe? You think burying your past would keep you alive? Elena's fingers tightened around the grip of her sidearm. I'm not the same person I was back then. No, he said. You're better. Smarter. Deadlier. She glanced at the pistol on the ground between them. She didn't trust him. Not one bit. But she also knew this wasn't just a chance encounter. Someone had sent him. Someone who wanted her out of the way. Who sent you? She demanded. Tell me, or this ends here. He laughed quietly, dark and bitter. You think I'm scared of you? I've been sent to finish a job, and you're the last piece. Her mind raced. A job. A target. But who was behind it? And why? Before she could react, the faint hum of a drone passed overhead. Both their eyes flicked up. It was subtle but enough. Someone else was watching. Your friends are coming, he said, standing slowly, wincing from the wound she'd inflicted earlier. But they won't save you. This isn't just about you, Elena. It's about everything you left behind. Elena didn't lower her weapon. I'm ready. Suddenly, a sharp whistle echoed through the ruins. A signal. The man's face shifted. His calm cracked just for a second. You're not alone after all. From the shadows, armed figures emerged. Not local militia. Not irregular fighters. Men dressed in black tactical gear, faces hidden behind masks. They moved like ghosts, closing in, with weapons raised. Elena's heart pounded. She wasn't outnumbered. She was outgunned. But fear wasn't an option. She dove behind a broken wall, pulling the injured sniper with her. Cover me, she barked into her radio. We need extraction now. Dalton's voice crackled back. Hold tight. We're en route. The gunmen spread out, searching, but Elena's team had learned well. They melted into the ruins, vanishing into shadows, giving Elena just enough time to reload. She took a breath, steadying her hands. The sniper beside her coughed, blood staining his shirt. He looked at her, respect mingling with pain. You're tougher than I thought, he admitted. Thanks, she replied grimly. You're about to find out why. As the enemy closed in, Elena felt a fire reignite inside her, a fierce, unbreakable will. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war, and she was ready to fight. The distant roar of helicopters filled the air. Help was coming. But first, she had to hold the line. Elena's pulse pounded in her ears as the shadows closed in. The black-clad operatives moved with deadly precision, cutting off every escape route. She glanced at the wounded man beside her, the ghost from Najaf, and knew time was slipping away fast. The dust and heat mixed with the metallic scent of blood, making the air thick and heavy. Her mind raced. They weren't just after her. This was an execution squad, sent to erase a ghost she thought she had buried years ago. But Elena wasn't done yet. "Stay down," she whispered, fumbling for a grenade from her belt. The metal felt cold and heavy in her hand. She knew every second counted. The enemy was closing the gap, moving in like wolves, circling their prey. She peeked over the wall. 2 of them, rifles raised, scanning carefully. They hadn't spotted her yet. She pulled the pin silently, then threw the grenade with a steady arm. The explosion ripped through the silence, sending stones and dust flying. The operatives dove for cover, shouting orders. Elena seized the moment, dragging the injured man to his feet. "Move," she urged, her voice sharp with urgency. They sprinted through the rubble-strewn streets, every step a gamble. Behind them, more gunfire echoed, bullets pinging off metal and concrete. The sniper's breathing was ragged, but he kept pace. Elena's mind flicked back to the captain's words, "Take my Barrett and drop that sniper." She'd proven herself once. Now, she had to prove it again. They rounded a corner and disappeared into the shadow of a collapsed building. Her radio crackled, Dalton's voice urgent. "Extraction point is hot. You need another route." She scanned the area ahead, narrow alleyways, unstable walls, and open spaces littered with debris. No clear path. "We'll have to break through the east side," she replied. "Cover me while I draw their fire." Her hands trembled, but her eyes were fierce. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that she wasn't just a medic. She was a soldier, a warrior. Elena stepped out, rifle raised. Bullets tore through the air. She fired back, forcing the operatives to focus on her. She felt the heat of the tracer rounds close by, but kept moving, drawing them toward her. The injured sniper ducked behind a broken wall, clutching his wound. Elena knew they couldn't hold this for long. Suddenly, a deafening roar split the sky. The helicopters were back. Their blades whipped the dust into a frenzy. "Hold on." Dalton's voice crackled. "Extraction is almost here." Elena fired one last round, then dropped to the ground, signaling to the sniper. Together, they sprinted toward the clearing where the choppers hovered, engines screaming. Gunfire erupted again. One of the operatives raised his rifle, aiming directly at Elena. Without hesitation, she rolled to the side, pulling the trigger. The shot hit true. The man dropped, and the others hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They made it. The helicopter's ramp lowered. Dalton and a handful of soldiers were waiting. Elena and the sniper dove inside, the door slamming shut just as another volley of bullets struck the metal exterior. Inside, the air was thick with adrenaline and relief. Elena looked at the man she had fought beside. "You made it." He smiled weakly. "Thanks to you." As the helicopter lifted off, soaring above the devastated village, Elena knew one thing for certain. This fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Elena sat back against the cold metal wall of the helicopter, the steady thrum of the engines pounding in her chest. The village below shrank rapidly, swallowed by the endless desert. But inside, the tension was suffocating. The man she'd fought beside, the one from her past, was still conscious, but barely. His breathing was shallow, and the blood on his shirt had soaked through the fabric. Dalton moved to the cockpit, eyes flicking back at them through the small window. "We're heading to the forward base. Medics are standing by." Elena nodded, though her mind was miles away. She kept glancing at the man. There was something about him, something she couldn't shake. The past wasn't just catching up. It was dragging her deeper into a web she thought she had escaped. She touched his arm gently. "Who sent you?" she asked again, voice low, more a plea than a demand. He winced but met her gaze. "It's bigger than us. A shadow network. They've been pulling strings since Najaf. You were a threat then, and now you're a threat again." Elena's mind flashed to the countless faces she'd seen over the years, friends lost, betrayals, whispers of corruption. She'd never been just a medic. She'd been a sniper, a soldier, a survivor. And now she was a target. "Why me?" she pressed. He coughed, blood staining his lips. "Because you know too much. Because you exposed them once. And because you didn't fall." The helicopter lurched, making her grip tighten. She looked out the small window. The base was a speck of life in the barren desert, strong, fortified, but not invincible. Dalton's voice came through the radio again. "We have reports. The attackers weren't just random mercenaries. They're part of a larger operation. We're going to have to dig deep." Elena swallowed hard. The mission had changed. This was no longer about a single sniper. It was about uncovering a conspiracy that reached far beyond the battlefield. She glanced at the wounded man, her mind racing through possibilities. If the network was still active, there were others. Allies hidden in shadows. Enemies disguised as friends. The helicopter touched down with a thud, boots hitting the ground before the ramp was even fully lowered. Medics rushed forward, taking the injured man into their care. Elena followed, her eyes scanning the perimeter. Security was tight, but the unease inside her grew heavier. She knew the enemy wasn't done. Dalton pulled her aside. "We're setting up a task force. You're in charge of tracking this network. They want you dead, but they also want their secrets kept." Elena nodded. "I'll find them." He looked at her with respect. "I always knew you were more than a medic." That night, Elena sat alone in the dimly lit command tent. Maps, photos, and intelligence reports spread out before her. Every piece was a clue, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Her fingers brushed over a grainy photo of a man she recognized, the one who had attacked her. "Who else is involved?" she whispered to herself. Outside, the desert wind howled, carrying with it the ghosts of her past and the promise of a fight far from over. Elena closed her eyes briefly, steeling herself. They thought she was just a medic, but she was about to become the storm, and no shadow could hide forever. Elena stood alone on the rooftop of the forward base, the cold night air biting through her uniform. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, dark and silent except for the distant hum of machinery and the occasional chatter over radios. The weight of everything pressed down on her, the past, the present, the dangerous unknown lurking just beyond the horizon. She had come far from the medic they once underestimated. Now, she was the leader of a mission to expose a network so deeply buried. It threatened not only her unit, but the entire operation in the region. Her fingers tightened around the worn grip of her sidearm. This was her fight, and she wasn't backing down. Her mind replayed the recent days. The sniper's sudden appearance, the ambush, the fight for survival, and the painful truth she'd uncovered. A shadow organization, built on deceit and betrayal, had been manipulating events from behind the scenes for years. Her past in Najaf was not just a memory. It was the beginning of something much darker. Dalton's words echoed in her head. "They want you dead, but they want their secrets kept." She knew that now. Every step she took forward was a step into a web of danger and lies. But Elena was no stranger to danger. Her radio crackled, breaking the silence. "Elena, we have a lead on the network's logistics hub. Coordinates uploaded. Team is ready for deployment." She responded without hesitation. "Understood. Move out in 15. As she descended the stairs to join her team, Elena felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier than ever. She was no longer just patching wounds. She was tearing open old scars to save the lives of many. Her eyes met those of the soldiers waiting below, steady, determined, ready. The convoy rolled out into the night, engines low and purposeful. The desert stretched around them like an endless black sea. The tension was palpable, every shadow a potential threat. Elena sat beside Dalton, reviewing the data on her tablet. "Intel says this hub controls weapons shipments, communications, everything," Dalton said quietly. "Cutting it out could cripple their operations." Elena nodded, finger tracing the route. "Then we take it down." They approached the location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of a forgotten town. The moon cast long shadows, perfect for concealment but also dangerous. Every step had to be calculated. The team moved like ghosts, silent and efficient. Elena led the way, her years of experience guiding her through the darkness. Suddenly, movement flickered ahead. Figures emerged, armed, alert, but surprised by the precision of Elena's unit. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the night. Elena took cover behind a rusted shipping container, returning fire with sharp, controlled shots. The battle was fierce but brief. The enemy was skilled, but Elena's team was better. Inside the warehouse, they found crates filled with weapons, encrypted communication devices, and stacks of documents. Elena's heart raced as she realized the magnitude of what they'd uncovered. She transmitted back to base. Package secured. Evidence collected. Network compromised. As the team exfiltrated, Elena paused for a moment, staring into the desert night. She thought of the medic she once was, the one they had underestimated. Now, she was the captain, the hunter, the protector. This fight had changed her, sharpened her resolve. And though shadows still lurked, waiting to strike, Elena knew one thing for sure. She was no longer invisible. She was a force to be reckoned with. The war wasn't over, but this time, she held the advantage.